This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, fine. So in yesterday's session, we discussed about these points: Fusion architecture. We have a middleware and database and Fusion application. These are the points we discussed. As a part of middleware, these are the different components we have. And we discussed about enterprise structure, how we have in EBS as a multi-org structure. In the Fusion, we call as enterprise structure. These are the enterprise units. And other point we discussed about geographies. Before we start with the application configuration, just we have to make sure that the specific country geography information should be available. It's a very simple task where you can go and import the Nokia data with a single click. The rest system will take care of the data would be available, so that when you create the locations, that information you can make use for the definitions of locations. Done. Now to start with any application configuration, so we need the common configuration. Okay, the common configuration, that is primary ledger. That is primarily part of financials, but still if you are going to work on SCM or any area that is required, so we'll just try to understand how to create very basic level, so that would be useful even if you are going to do this implementation alone without any finance guy support. So this basically we call as common configuration. Okay, this comes under common configuration. Any application you implement, the primary ledger is required. So to create the primary ledger, first what we'll do is we'll create accounting calendar. These are very simple tasks. Okay, accounting calendar, and currency we have to keep ready, and chart of accounts. And anyway, subledger accounting method we require. So these four components we require to create the primary ledger. Once these four components are ready, we can create the primary ledger. And after primary ledger, we create legal entity. We'll discuss those points after completing these tasks. Okay. So first we need accounting calendar. We'll go and create the accounting calendar. It's just Oracle given automation in the Fusion application. We'll see that. You no need to go and enter all the fields, all the period names and all, like EBS. So here directly you can give the specifications. Automatically system will create accounting calendar. We'll see that process. So go to project, search for accounting calendar. Search for accounting calendar. First we'll see through manual process, and I'll show you in the wrapped implementation approach also. So whatever you are comfortable, you can go with that, but you should understand through manually how to create, so that if any issues anytime you can go and look into that. So that is the reason just we have to understand this manual process also. Okay, fine. So so task name is manage accounting calendars. The task is available from two paths. One is finance and the other one is procurement. Since we are going to work on the same side, you can prefer to select the first task, where the path is procurement related. Just click on this task. That means even if you don't include financials as a part of this project, you'll be able to complete this task. Manage accounting calendars. Click on go to task icon. Okay, this we call as go to task icon. Here this is a vision instance, so that is the reason we have many calendars available. Normally when we work on the fresh instance, we don't see single calendar also. Whatever the calendar we create, that would be the first one. In reality, this calendar will be created by a finance consultant, but for your practice convenience, so we'll create it so that it would be easy from the scratch. We'll be able to do everything. Again, these are not a big tasks which are difficult and all. You don't need to think. It's a simple task, just will complete. Maybe hardly it may take 1 or max 2 sessions, so that will be very much comfortable to create from the scratch. Then we can go with our core SEM part. There we'll be using these primary ledgers, business units and all anyway we require. So we'll see that. Okay, so just click on create. Just click on create. So here we have to provide the accounting calendar name. I'll give the name as ERP3 accounting calendar. Short name I'm writing. The field accepts very limited characters. Here I'll write the name as ERP3 accounting calendar for USA. When I talk about USA, what is the financial year for USA? When financial year starts in USA?
Jan to December.
Jan to December.
Jan. So that date you have to select Jan 1st it starts, right? So here start date you have to select as a 1st Jan. Okay, 1st Jan. And period frequency monthly. Okay, within our accounting calendar we'll have all the months. Every month will have a dates. You can go with the period frequency as monthly. And how system has to separate the period name and year name. So with hyphen only, the same hyphen. What is the format we require for period? And in month in 3 digits, year in 2 digits. In between, the separator should be hyphen. Yes, this is a standard format we use normally.
Lakshman, this is US accounting calendar you are defining. You are defining US accounting calendar. Indian will start from 1st April, right? If it all
Yes,
happens.
in April 1st, yes. We are creating for USA. So if you are creating accounting calendar for India, here you have to take 1st April. That's it. Accordingly, system will create the calendar automatically. Right? So normally finance point of view or accounting point of view, like, so if you talk about monthly, normally in calendar we'll have a 12 periods, right? Now, calendar monthly period means 12 periods only will have. But ideally we create more than 12 periods. Even period type is monthly. The reason is end of the year the company has to perform some adjustment entries to maintain the adjustment entries and end of the financial year. So normally we'll just suggest the client to have one more period apart from the actual periods. That period we call as adjusting period. So here you can specify how many adjusting periods we require in our accounting calendar. So ideally we go with this once at year end. Okay, you can select the same. Here we no need to focus on more on these points. Reason these are related to financials, but still let's try to understand the basic level of definition. Okay, so every end of the year we do some adjustments. The adjustments, instead of doing in the actual period, when you say John it ends in the December, instead of doing the adjustment entries in the December, to pass the adjustment entries in the end of the year, we'll have a additional period that we call as adjusting period. So that let's create one at year end. That means monthly means 12 periods plus one more period, total 13 periods. System will create it automatically. So give the specifications, then click on next. It will create the accounting calendar automatically. Okay, just click on next. Just click on next. System created. The same task if you want to do in EBS, you have to enter all the periods, or else you have to use the data loader to load the data. You have to enter all the periods in the data loader sheets. With the help of the sheets you have to load into the system, but in the Fusion you have to give the specification, then automatically system will create. System created accounting calendar automatically. And see, it created how many periods? 13 periods. 12 are actual periods, 13th one is adjustment. System is marking as the period is adjusting period. Adjusting period, yes. Done. Now you have to save and close. Done. Accounting calendar is ready. Yeah, please.
Can you go over to the back window?
Yeah, tell me. Just tell me if you have any question.
That
Because
is,
see,
what
I'm
is
not
the
asking
budget?
everything more detail level. The reason is this is not actually our task, but to start with our SEM, basic setups need to be completed. That is the reason we have we are working on it.
What is that
Tell me
budgetary control? Budgetary control only
that we
checkbox.
don't require, but if you want to understand, okay, no issues. See, budgetary control in EBS, you know EBS, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Can we have a separate calendars for budgeting apart from your accounting calendar in EBS?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes.
No. Answer is no. You cannot have. Whatever the accounting calendar you are using, the same you have to use for budgeting purpose. That's it. That is all. That's how it works in EBS. But in the Fusion, they're given the flexibility where you can have separate calendar for budgeting apart from your accounting calendar. So whatever the calendar you are creating here, that is for your ledger purpose, don't enable it. The calendar, whatever you are creating, that if you want to use only for budgeting purpose. Simple example I'll give you. Your accounting calendar may be monthly, your budgeting calendar may be weekly. That is possible in the Fusion applications. Okay, that is possible in the Fusion applications. So that's how it works. The budget definition and all part of GL and all. That is the reason we don't need to focus on that. It goes under GL configuration. So we don't do that budget definitions and all from our SCM side. But since we have that question, that is a point we have to understand. In Fusion application, they given the flexibility of maintaining the separate calendars for account our ledger as well as budgeting, which is not possible in EBS. If you are creating any calendar for your budgeting purpose, which is different from your accounting calendar, enable that checkbox called as only for budgeting. Only for budgetary control. Budgetary control only. The calendar what you are creating here, that is not for your primary ledger purpose. That is for budgeting purpose. That will be using only for budget. That's
Okay.
it. Yeah, done. So this is what we just now we created ERPT, right? Just search for ERPT. Just enter the name and use enter. So you can find our accounting calendar. This is accounting calendar we created. Okay. Now the next component which we require is currency. In EBS, okay.
This is Gaurav.
Yeah, please.
Lakshman.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Gaurav here. Actually, yeah, you are showing us configurations fine. In the end, are you having a plan to have a workshop of one individual case study like Tata Group or something like end-to-end configuration? We shall do. Any that kind of exercise are in the plan?
Gaurav, I'm taking ERP tree here. Any name you can take. When you're practicing, you can go with other name, but configuration remains same. Can you hear me, Gaurav?
Okay. I was just asking like real-time business scenario or
the real
yeah,
time.
I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay.
I think there is some time lag. Fine, no issues. See, the real time how you do the configuration, the scenarios and all just will be executing. There won't be any difference. Just when you are practicing, you can use a different name, which you can treat you are implementing for so and so client. Here I'm taking the example with the ERP tree. That's all. Fine. Okay. So currency. When you talk about currency in EBS or Fusion, Oracle is providing all the currencies. For all the countries, they are providing currencies, which we call as currency information is available as a seeded data. Okay. So when you talk about accounting calendar, we have to create. Oracle is not providing any accounting calendars. We have to create. But when you talk about currency, all currencies Oracle is providing. In case of EBS, what we have to do is we have to enable the currency. But in the Fusion, that is also not required. All currencies Oracle is providing, and by enabling. Okay, you no need to enable also. Just we'll go to that currency screen and we'll see, that's it. In case of EBS, which currency we require, we have to enable. But in the Fusion, that also not required. By default, all currencies are enabled and available. But just to understand where you can see that currencies, will go to the relevant screen. Search for manage currencies. Search. See, the currencies task is available from 4 different paths. You can choose any one of the path. Since we are working from purchasing SCM side, I prefer to choose from procurement. But any task will take us to same page. Just click on go to task icon. So we want which currency, since we are going to do this configuration for US based example, you can search for USD. Search. See, USD currency is enabled. Even in the fresh instance also, you can see as all currencies are enabled. Which currencies your client is not going to use, those you may disable it. But in case of EBS, which currencies we require we enable, rest of currencies will by default will be disabled mode. But here totally reverse. By default, Oracle is enabling all the currencies. If you want to see all the currencies, what you can do, remove the search criteria, directly click on search. Now you can see all the currencies are enabled. Okay, not because this is Vision instance. By default, this is how you can see in any instance. Okay, that means related to currency, we no need to do anything. Accounting calendar we created. I'm just marking the status as done. And currency, we no need to do anything because all currencies are available with enabled option. Now we have to create the chart of accounts. Okay, to create the chart of accounts, we have to perform the multiple tasks. I'll take this as a separate. Okay. To create
In
the
real
chart
time, we
of
have to disable.
Yeah, that's what I
Satish,
mentioned the point. That's what I mentioned the point. What are the currencies your client is not going to use, you may disable. You may disable, it's not mandatory. Okay, if you want to disable, you can disable, or else what are the currencies you require, you can use it. But primarily, most of the transaction we record from our primary ledger only, right? Primary ledger currency only. What are the currency we use in primary ledger, that currency only we use. So that is the reason wherever you go and record the transaction, what are the currency we take in the primary ledger, that only will get defaulting. And if you are going to record the foreign currency transaction, in that case, all currencies would be available with which currency you are doing that transaction. You can select it. Before that, you have to create the exchange rates also, right? That is there. Okay, so we created accounting calendar. Currency, we no need to do anything. By default, all currencies are enabled. So you may disable the currencies which you are not going to use for your client. Your client is not going to use specific currencies, you may disable. If you don't disable, what happens? There won't be an issue. Just if you are going to select specific currency, big list you can see. Since if those currencies are not required for us, you may disable it. Done. Now chart of accounts. So it's a chart of account designing is big task for finance consultant. But we are not going to involve designing the chart of accounts here. Just we'll try to understand how to create the chart of account. That would be enough for us, which will help us for this practice, or anytime if you are going to create chart of account based on the information they provide, you will be able to do it. So to create the chart of accounts, first we have to create the chart of account structure name. Say create chart of accounts structure name. Just before that, we'll create something else. We'll follow the sequence which need to be followed in the Fusion. It's slightly different if you compare with EBS. First we have to create. So here for our testing purpose, we'll create a few segments. So we will have a company segment within the chart of accounts. So department segment, and we'll have account segment. For each segment, we have to create the value sets. So what we'll do is first we'll go and create the value sets. Create value sets. So we are going to create 3 segments. For 3 segments, we have to create 3 value sets. So as per chart of accounts rule, 2 segments are mandatory. We can create max 30 segments. Maximum 30 segments we can create. If you want to create the chart of accounts, minimum 2 segments you should have. Those are company and account. Ideally, we call as those as balancing segment and account segment. Those points we'll discuss when we are defining why we call as balancing and natural account also. Okay, within the chart of accounts, you can create max 30 segments, minimum or 2 segments. But here we are going to create 3 segments, which would be enough for us. First, we'll create the value sets. Then we can go and create the chart of account structure name. Then we'll create the segments. Say create segment. We'll create these 3 segments. At the time of segment creation, we associate these value sets to these segments. Okay, we have to assign these value sets to respective segments. For segments, we have to assign the qualifiers as per EBS. Okay, in EBS we call as qualifiers: balance and segment flex field qualifier, cost center, intercompany, secondary tracking, management. Okay, so secondary, all these qualifiers we have. The same qualifiers we call as segment labels in Fusion applications. So we'll create the segments and we have to assign segment labels to segments. As per EBS, these are flex field qualifiers. They change the name in Fusion. In EBS, whatever we call as flex field qualifiers, that in Fusion we are calling as segment labels. We are calling as segment labels. Okay, we are calling as segment labels. Fine. So after creating this value sets, chart of account structure name, and segments and segment labels, we have to assign the segment labels to respective segments. We'll discuss when we do it detail level. After creating this, we have to create chart of accounts structure instance. Okay, instance is a new concept in the Fusion applications. You don't see any chart of account structure instance in EBS applications. Okay, that could be EBS 11A or release 12. There is no chart of account structure instance. Okay, but here we have to create. Why we have to create, we'll see before we create. Now we are just talking about what task we have to perform. So after creating it, you have to, in EBS case, what we'll do, we'll create the chart of account structure and we have to freeze and compile. Here there is no concept called as compile. Equal to that, they give an option called as deploy. We have to deploy, okay, flex field, accounting flex field. Where we create the chart of accounts we can create in accounting key flex field. Accounting key flex field reality, but basically the display name you see always as accounting flex field only. So by using the accounting key flex field, we can create the chart of accounts. So, but whenever you see in the system, you see like this, accounting flex field. By using accounting key flex field, we can create the chart of accounts. Accounting flex field we have within the general ledger application. In general ledger application, we have accounting flex field. Within the accounting flex field, we can create the chart of accounts. So once you create the chart of accounts within this accounting flex field, we have to deploy the same. Deploy means we'll be submitting to compile our chart of accounts. So that system will verify our chart of accounts are properly created or not. It will make a note and it will give the output also based on the submission. Once you submit for deployment, the concurrent job will be submitted by concurrent manager, and the results you can see whether everything went fine or anything wrong with that. Accordingly, you will get error message or warning. Will get a will run the system will run the request. The same request in the Fusion we are calling as a job, so you can get to know what is the status of our chart of accounts. So we have to deploy the accounting flex field. So in case of EBS, just will compile only our chart of account structure, and the Fusion entire accounting flex field we have to deploy. These points we'll see directly, we'll see and we'll discuss again. Okay, just I'm giving list of tasks which need to be performed. After completing this, we have to create segment values for the segments. Company segment values, department account we have to create. So create segment values. Okay, we can create segment values after completing all these. Before, you cannot create. In EBS you can create the value set in EBS. Directly you can create the segment values, but here you cannot create. If you want to create, you can create off of. In EBS, when you create the segment value, for segment values we assign segment qualifiers. In Fusion, the same segment qualifiers we call as value attributes. For segment values we have to assign value attributes. Nothing but allow budgeting, allow posting, right? Account type, third party control account, reconcile, all these we call as segment qualifiers in EBS. In Fusion we are calling as value attributes. Assign value attributes to segment values. If you have a basic idea about it, now easily you can understand. If you don't know about this, no need to worry about it. How to do, you can understand that. That's enough. That will help you to start your practice from the scratch. Okay, at least if you don't understand this, because there are a lot of other information which need to be discussed related to this, but that is not required for us when we work as a CM consultant. But the basic, at least how to define the chart of accounts, if you can understand, that is enough. Whenever we have to create, at least when you are practicing, you can create. And when you are working the project, if there is a need of defining, you will be able to do it. That is the idea behind it. Okay, so these are the setups, these are the tasks we have to perform so that our chart of accounts should be ready. Okay, our chart of accounts should be ready. Okay, we'll see how to create the chart of accounts now. First we have to create the value sets. Okay, we have 3 segments. For 3 segments we'll create the 3 value sets. So maintain the values separately. Directly we cannot maintain the values under segments. With the help of value sets only you can maintain the values for any segment. So for that reason, to maintain all the company values, we need company value set. To maintain all the department values, we need department value set. For account values, we need account value set. We'll just go to define it. Okay, first we'll create the value sets. Go to our project. Okay, search for the task called as chart of accounts value sets. Task name is.
Question, Laxman, sorry.
Yeah, please.
You talk about rapid implementation before, and you said we will do it manually later. You will talk about it, or?
Yes, that's what I just mentioned in today's session also. I first will take you through manual process so that you can understand reality how those can be configured. And rapid implementation, simple process, data you can put in the spreadsheet, submit, it will be configured. Both will be covering. Okay, I'll take you through that process also.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, done. So task name, we have to create the value sets. To create the value sets, search for the task called as chart of accounts value sets. Okay, task name is chart of account value set. We know every task starts with the manage, right? If you click on search, you can see the task name as manage chart of account value sets. See here, manage chart of accounts value sets. The same task is available from financials and procurement. We can go with the procurement. Click on the task, and here is the task. You may just drag little right to see full name if anything is hiding. Manage chart of accounts, value sets. Just click on go to task icon. See, conceptually there is a lot of information to understand about chart of accounts that is not required for us being a same consultant, but at least try to understand how to define these things. That would be more than enough for us. Okay, instead of using existing chart of accounts and primer ledger, I'm just trying to create our own. Fine. So here, if you want to find out any existing value sets, you can search and find. In Fusion, whatever you create, by default you can see the search section. Okay, this is search section. You can, in anything you create, you can find the search by default. If you want to search, you can search, or else you can create our own. Okay, so this is the value set creation screen. From here you have to click on create. Just click on create. Just click on create. We have to create 3 value sets because we are going to have 3 segments within our chart of accounts. So we can create a number of, normally when you do the implementation, you could see 5, 6, 7, 8 and include again future segments and all. But the actual solution is done by finance team after having several rounds of discussion with the finance and accounting teams. So, but here just we want to understand how to create irrespective of their how the solution is done for how chart of accounts are designed and what criteria and all. So simply just we'll understand how to do it. So that is the reason we are going with the simple chart of account structure called as 3 segments. That is enough for us. Okay, the value set name I want to give ERP tree company. I'll take the same as a description and select module. Application is general ledger. Okay, chart of accounts we can create within the general ledger only. So within the general ledger we are going to create chart of account. Within that we will be using this value set. So select application as a general ledger, module or application general ledger. Validation type, what are the companies you enter within this value set? Those are independent or dependent and subset or table you want to fetch from the table. Who has experience on EBS, SCM or any other application, they have understanding about table, these value sets and all. Okay, the same logic remains. So I'm selecting these all values which we are going to maintain. Companies are independent values. There is no dependency. One company will have other dependency on others company where that company will become parent, this company will become child. No, we are going to have direct companies as independent companies. So select validation type as independent, select value data type as a character. If you select character, it will allow you to enter any text or numerical values. You can go with a value data type as character. Within the value set, whatever.
This module is was not an EBS. It is introduced and I have not seen it.
Sorry?
I'm very sure. Module was not available in EBS. EBS module was not.
I got you. Sorry. In EBS, where you create the value set normally when you create the chart of accounts?
Yes. Flex fields.
No,
we create flex fields. Yeah.
Within the flex field, accounting flex field, where we have within the GL, right?
Right.
When you are creating, we first will select the module called a general ledger, then we'll select accounting flex field. Within that we'll create the structure, within that we'll create the segments, and then within that we'll create the value set. That means we are within the GL only, right?
Value set can be independent there, and you can attach it to a particular
Correct. I'm not
segment.
talking about that. No, Gaurav, I'm not talking about it. Just you mentioned this, you don't see in EBS. For that I'm answering. EBS, you don't select module. The reason is you will be creating the value sets within the chart of account inside only. Chart of account we can create within the GL only. That's how system will understand over there. Here you don't have option like EBS to create within the chart of account. You have to create as a separate definition. That is the reason you have to select it. Okay, that is the point we have to understand. In EBS, we'll create a value set as a part of chart of account definition inside of the chart of account only. Chart of accounts you are creating within the GL accounting flex field. That's how system can take the understanding the value set is belongs to which module. But even if you select the module, there is no great advantage. This can be used for any other module related flex fields also. Just for segregation only, this would be useful. That's it. Okay. Fine. Just select value data type as character. That means within this value set, what are the company values you enter, whether those you want to enter numbers or just text that you have to represent. So normally date and date time and all not applicable here. It's all about companies. That is the reason. If you take number, only number, no, just take the character. It will allow you number and any text. And this is related to GL features, security rules and all.
Security enabled for security rules, right?
Gaurav, please, from your side, voice is not clear. I don't agree any questions from your end. If you have any issues, we'll discuss after session. Fine. So value subtype, you can select as a text. Okay, we will be entering the text only as a company information, and maximum length. So maximum length, when you are entering the company codes, the company code, what should be the length? I'll say 4. 4 means it will accept up to in the 4 with the 4 digits. What is a big number? 9,999. So the company code you want to enter in how many digits? Max 4 digit numbers you want to enter. Accordingly, you can specify. Okay. So you can say save and close.
Security enabled option.
Sorry.
Security enabled option under the value data type.
So that is not required for us, Srinivas. That is GL future, one of the GL future. So that is security rule. If you want to implement the security rule on this value set, you have to enable. Once you enable, system will open this field. You can enter the name and you have to enter into inside of edit data security. There you will create the rule. Okay, that is GL future. We don't require. Okay, our target is first of all the chart of accounts and primary ledger definition. We don't do, but for basic understanding, I'm just taking through this session. Okay, which we required, I'll be covering. Okay, which is required, I'll be covering for our basic understanding. Once we get into our area, then we can discuss whatever you want to understand. No issues. But here, these are related to finance. So what is the basic level of knowledge we require, I'll be covering. Okay, the security and this field all related to general ledger future called as security rule, which you can use for sub ledger applications also. But that has to be created by finance consultant. They'll take the requirement from the client, accordingly they'll define. That you can set for value set. But for us, not required. We are trying to create chart of accounts only. Those all features we are not going to implement. Okay, so this is how you have to create the value set. You just try to understand this information. This is enough for us. You can test your SCM by creating all these. This would be enough. Just say save and close. We created a value set for company. Now just click on create. We'll create one more value set. Same process. ERP3 department. And select module. General ledger. Validation type is independent values. Even independent will be able to create parent child relation. That's a totally different. So value data type is characters. Select value subtype as a text we want to enter. And here maximum length for this also, let's give 4 characters so that the department number you can enter with max 4 digits. And anyway, you can write the department names that is separate. Say save and close. and we can create value set for account. Just click on create. So ERP3 account, select module, validation type is independent, value data type is character, subtype you can select text, maximum length for the accounts which you enter I'm taking 4. Reality will have 5, 6 because they will be having n number of accounts for any client. So no issues here, we can go with the 4.
There is
Just save
balancing natural account, balancing segment and natural account. That is mandatory. Where we are designing.
No, your question is not clear. Can you make it?
Okay.
Just can you make it
for
loud?
this field, balancing segment and natural account should be mandatory, right? Where we are assigning that?
We have to wait to see that. We are creating the what value sets.
Okay.
We discussed about segments, right? We have to create the segments. That's what here see. Value set we have to create, then chart of account structure name, then we'll create the segments.
Okay.
Segment creation time, those 2 segments are mandatory, what we discussed, right? That we'll see. Okay, now just we are creating the value sets. Fine. So we created 3 value sets. Okay, 3 value sets. Now next step is chart of accounts structure name we have to provide. Okay, so if you notice here, just we created, so I'm saying save and close to come out from this page. So here this is the task we use to create the value sets, right? Next to this, what task we have? Manage chart of account structures. So what are the tasks we have to perform? All are in the sequence only. Value sets we created. Next task is we have to create the chart of account structure. It's nothing but I given the name as create chart of account structure name. Inside will create the segments and will assign the segment labels on top. We'll see that. Okay, value sets we created. Now we have to create the chart of account structure name. Nothing but chart of account structure. So this is a task. Just click on go to task icon. Just click on go to task icon. So chart of account structure we can create within the accounting flex field. Okay, this is one of the key flex field in the general ledger application. So here we have a search section, search for accounting flex field. Accounting, type key flex field name as accounting key flex field. Click on search. So system is displaying within the general ledger application we have accounting flex field. It is nothing but accounting key flex field. So within the accounting flex field only we can create our chart of accounts. Okay, now what we have to do is, this is the process. So getting this. So task is manage chart of account structures. Click on go to task icon. It will take us to this page. Here you have to search for accounting flex field. Instead of typing the full name, you just type accounting or ACC and click on search. So it is showing the record general ledger application. Within that accounting flex field we have. Within the accounting flex field only we can create our chart of accounts. Now to create the chart of accounts, what we have to do is, after searching for this record, only these tabs will get enabled. Before searching you don't see this as enabled. Okay, now you have to click on manage structures. Just click on manage structures. Click on manage structures. Here we can create our chart of account structure. So click on manage structures, will be landing in this page. Click on create. Provide the name. Name is ERP3. You can write the name as ERP3 chart of accounts, or normally we write the name as accounting flex field or flex field structure. This is how you can write the name. The chart of account name we are giving as ERP3 accounting flex field. Within the accounting flex field, we are creating the chart of account. That is the reason we are representing the same name, or you can write as a ERP tree accounting flex field. Normally, when you do the implementation, this is how you prefer the name to use. So take this code and use as a name also, and same use as a description. And a delimiter. In EBS, you see this delimiter as a segment separator. If you see chart of account structure level, you have one option called as segment separator. The same they given here as a delimiter. So when you enter the segment, when you select the codes need to be separated. For separation purpose, which option you want to use? I want to use this dot icon. Okay, that means when I just enter the company department, company, it will be separated with this dot, with this delimiter. Okay, select it. So ideally we use this option, or else sometimes we'll use hyphen. The rest of icon symbols we don't use. Okay, you can go with this one. This would be the best option. Okay, that means the company department account, if you enter code combination, if you select these 3 codes, company department account, these 3 codes will be separated with this selected delimiter. Okay, we given the code name, description, and delimiter. So here we can create below you can create the segments. To create the segments, this create segment function is disabled. You see here, grayed out. So once you enter this data here, you have to save it so that this option will be enabled. Click on save. Okay, click on save. Done. Now we'll go and create the segments. So just we plan to create 3 segments. We'll go and create one by one. For each segment, we created value sets, right? We'll do that. So now just click on create. So we given the chart of account structure name. Within that, we are going to create the segments. So here, value sets we created, structure we created, name. Now we are going to create the segments. Click on create. So give the segment name. Segment name is company. Okay. So automatically system is copying that same segment code to API. We know API means application programming interface. So basically what Oracle is recommending is, if you are going to do any integrations, it could be inbound or outbound or third party or any sort of integrations, if you are going to do, what we do normally, we do the field mapping, right? We do the field mapping with a third party application. Normally when you do field mapping, we use specific field. Okay, so what Oracle is recommending is, whenever you create the segment code with the same name, system will create the API name. So API name Oracle is recommending to use for this field mapping. Instead of using this segment code as a mapping field, use API name field for this segment code. Okay, that means if you want to map company segment with any third-party application in terms of integrations, instead of using this name, use the name which is there in the API name field. Just place the cursor in this field, you can understand. Okay, so it is used in web services. So web services is one of the service in the SOA. And reporting. If you are going to define the reports, if you want to fetch the data based on this company segment, instead of mapping this company code column, or you call as field or label, you take this API name column. And other integration points. When you are going to do the third party integrations, what Oracle is recommending is, instead of using this field, use this field. That's it. So that is the reason just they are giving, once you give the name, that will be copied as API name. This is the name is recommended by Oracle to use any integrations. Integrations or web services also part of SOA only, service oriented architecture, which is part of middleware. Okay, and the reporting. If you are going to prepare some custom reports, instead of selecting this as a kind of parameter for a parameter, any other query purpose, instead of using this field, use this field. This field is copy of this field only. Oracle recommends this. That's all. So now you can give the same segment name here. Segment name, same description also you can take the same. So within our chart of account, this is going to be first segment, sequence wise number 1. Okay, sequence number is 1. Prompt, nothing but how the segment name should be displayed when user is going to record the transactions with the same name. In case of EBS, when you create the segment, we have window prompt. Okay, window prompt. So that field they given as prompt. Here short prompt also you can give short name for the segment, but already name itself very short, so you know to give the specification. Here display width, you will create the companies. When you create the company name need to be displayed in how many characters when user is going to record the transaction, that you can specify, say 30. We don't enter any company names very long, okay, long names, so max you can take 30 characters, so that the company names which you write, okay, those you can enter and those will be displayed up to 30 characters when user is going to select the company names and all when the user is going to record any transactions. And column, max we can have 30 segments, the same you can see here as a columns, max 30 you can see here. By default they are displaying 10. If you go to search, if you click on search, you can see max 30 segments, but okay, max 30 segments. Okay, so in even EBS also max 30 segments only you can have. We know no company use maximum availability, hardly we can see in any implementation 6, 7, 8, max maybe 10. But always as per chart of account designing practice, what finance guys will do is they'll always try to minimize the number of segments as a part of chart of account structure. Otherwise, if you have many segments within the chart of accounts, that will cause performance issues, application performance issues. Reality, there won't be any need of having many segments within the chart of account. Reason is, so in every application, each and every application, there is a possibility where you can track the information, so which is application specific and process specific. If you talk about purchasing, in purchasing when you are recording the transaction, based on the transaction you will be able to generate the reports and you will be able to track the transaction supplier wise to many reports. The supplier you don't need to include as a part of chart of account structure. The same way customer, when you are dealing with the order management, so items and all we don't need to include as a part of chart of accounts. The segments, which information we require across all the applications as a common information, those we have to include as a chart of account structure. So there are many points which you have to understand, best practices when you are designing the chart of accounts and all. That would be taken care by finance consultant. Let's try to understand just how to create the chart of accounts for our practice benefit. So select, I am selecting the column as 1. It's not selected. Select segment 1. And we created value set for company, right? For company we created value set. That value set we have to assign to this company segment. So default value set selected. In EBS, when you create the segment, value set is not mandatory. Anyway, we assign to have access to the data which is available in the value set, but by default it's not mandatory. That is the reason in case of EBS, first you can create the segment, later you can create the value set, but in the Fusion sequence is different. Okay, without value set you cannot create segment, but in EBS first you can create segment, then you can create value set, no issues. But here segment creation time, value set they made as a mandatory. That is the reason we created value set first. So search and select our value set. Search with ERP tree term. So company. So ideally for company we make as a balancing segment. What do you mean by balancing segment? What segment level all the transactions need to be balanced, the debit and credit lines need to be balanced, and what level you want to prepare the reports and you want to have a control and reporting and all, what level you want to do, so that you take as a balancing segment, ideally company. So here we have a segment labels. Okay, Any question? Fine. So in case of EBS,
Just to add on, like it will be the segment to which trial balance will be generated. Balancing segment.
any reports. That's what I mentioned, reports. Okay, all the reports. It could be income statement or trial balance or any report. All the transaction, each and every transaction. Okay, you will be balancing with the company level. So we have a balancing rule. When you talk about balancing segment, the debit and credit always system will verify when you record the transaction. The debit line and credit line should get balanced with the same company value. That is a balancing rule. So that should happen at what level? That level, that segment we take as a balancing segment. Fine, in EBS we call as segment flex field qualifiers. The same flex field qualifiers here we are calling as segment labels. The name they changed. For company we have to assign balancing segment. In Fusion we have a three balancing segment labels. Okay, so in EBS we have only one balancing segment, and we have other one secondary balancing segment flex field qualifier. But in Fusion we have primary balancing segment, secondary balancing segment, third balancing segment. But normally we use only one balancing segment, which we treat as a best practice when you design the chart of accounts. Otherwise, if you are going to have more than one balancing, always we have to make sure that the transactions will get balanced, all the levels, what level you are making as a balancing segment. So you select for company as a primary balancing segment. Okay, make company as a primary balancing segment. So just how to do it, select and just select here. This is how we have to assign the segment label to company segment. Now you can treat this company as a balancing segment since we assign primary balancing segment label. So whenever you record the transaction, always system will look at debit and credit taken for the same company or not. So since we are going to record the transactions with the rule of debit and credit need to be taken for the same company, so that is the right information where you can prepare the reports also. Okay, that is a balancing rule which will be enabled by this primary balancing segment label. In EBS we call as these are flex field qualifiers, but Fusion we are calling as segment labels. For company, assign primary balancing segment label and just say save and close. The next segment is department. We'll go and create the department segment. Same process. Click on department. So click on create. Name is department. So tab out. It will copy, system will copy the department name as API name, which can be used in these processes. Instead of using this name directly, Oracle recommends to use this field. So name, description, it is going to be second segment. Prompt, display name we require as a department only. Short name also you can take the same. Width, okay, display width. When you write the department names, those need to be displayed in how many character display we require. You can give 30. We never write with the 30 characters department name, but no issues, you can write it, you can take it. Column name, it is going to be second segment. And for department segment we created value set, right, that you have to select. So name is ERP3. So select department. Okay, done. For department segment, we assign cost center segment. Cost center segment label. So the reason is it's primarily when you are working on financial application and the fixed assets, if you want to capture the depreciation department wise, you have to associate, it's a mandatory. If you are using the fixed assets, if you are going to use the iExpense applications, So cost center wise will be cost center based approvals will be managing. That is the reason it is a mandatory you have to associate. So for that reason, for a department we have to assign cost center segment label. Just assign cost center segment label to department segment. Say save and close. Now the third segment is account. Click on create. So segment name is, say segment code is account. About it will copy the name. You can give the name and description. It's going to be third segment. Prompt is same account. Short prompt is account. Sorry, any question?
For department can be fetched from HR module or?
Sorry?
For department segment.
Department?
Segment.
Department segment?
It can be fetched from HR module, or it should be like
No,
this.
No. HR departments, those are organization-based departments. That's totally different. No. Okay.
Okay.
That's different. Those we don't create the segments. Those are organizations. You can create as organizations. Accordingly, you can manage the resource and you can perform HR and payroll transaction. That's different. You cannot fetch from there. This has to be created here. Based on this, they'll create the departments over there. Here, whatever the departments are exist, accordingly they'll be creating the departments for their costs. They can have a different representation also as a part of HCM or HRMS solution. This, whatever the departments organization has, the total departments will create here as a part of department within the department segment. Okay. So display with say 30, what are the account names we are going to create, those need to be displayed with max 30 characters. And this is going to be third segment. And for depart account, we created value set that you can select here. That is ERP3 account. Search. Say OK. Now for account, we have to assign the segment label called as natural account. Natural account, select. If you assign natural account, when you create the accounts for account segment, it will give you the option to select account type and other labels also, other qualifiers also, like third party control, account reconcile. All by default, every segment value will get 2 qualifiers only as for EBS, allow budgeting, allow posting. But when I talk about account segment, we require additional qualifiers called as account type, third party control, account reconcile. These 3 additional qualifiers we get because of natural account segment qualifier only. The same we are calling as label here in Fusion, and qualifiers we are calling as label, and the segment qualifiers we are calling as attributes. That means the 3 additional attributes the account segment values will get because of this. Other than allow budgeting, allow posting, 3 additional attributes, okay, value attributes, account type, reconcile, third party control account, and Fusion they added few more also. We'll see when we create the segment values. For account, you should assign natural account segment label. So save and close. So mandatory. For company, assign natural account, the balancing segment label. For account, assign natural account segment label. For department, just depending on which modules we are using, we have to assign. But when you are practicing, also assign cost center, there won't be any issue. So since these 3 we treat as a mandatory, if you are going to use a department, that label is mandatory. Ideally, this company and accounts are mandatory. In company place, normally we use company naming, or else you can use something else also, naming convention. That depends on client, how they want to have, what level they want to balance the transaction, and what level they want to prepare the reports, and what level they want to segregate the data. How many companies we are going to have, accordingly we'll have operating units also. In case of Fusion, business units. Done. Okay, fine. So we created 3 segments. For 3 segments, while we are creating the segments, we assign the value sets and we associated respective segment labels also. Say save and close. Again, click on done. Just click on done. Okay. Here I'm just updating. We created segments, and for segment we assign segment labels, nothing but flex field qualifiers. Now what we have to do is we have to create chart of account structure instance. So in EBS we no need to do it. In Fusion they made it as mandatory since they taken some sort of solutions from other applications. This instance definition and all they taken from this PeopleSoft product. So it's just instance. What is the meaning of instance? The English term copy. That means in Fusion applications you cannot use chart of accounts directly. Against the chart of accounts structure you have to create the instance. That instance only you can use. Okay, only you can use the instance, you cannot use the chart of account structure. Of course we created chart of account structure, and if you create the chart of account structure in EBS, the same chart of account structure we can use directly to primary ledger. So that's how you can make use of it when you are recording the transactions. But in the Fusion there is small change. So whatever the chart of account structure you are creating, against the chart of account structure you have to create the chart of account structure instance. It's nothing but same chart of account structure will copy to instance. So that is the one which will be using as a part of your primary ledger. That means finally we are going to use chart of account structure instance only to record the transactions. Okay, so that's how just they made that configuration. Now we'll see how to create the chart of account structure instance. Just first we'll see. If you have any questions we'll discuss. Okay, we create a chart of account structure. Now we are going to create chart of account structure instance. So we are in this page. By clicking on manage structures, we created chart of account structure. To create the chart of account structure instance, next tab we have to use manage structure instances. Okay, manage structure instances. Just click on this. Okay, manage structure instances. So just click on create. You can give the name ERP3 accounting flex. You don't need to write the name as this is ERP3 accounting flex field instance and all. Just write very generic name. And for this also, here we have API name, same purpose. So integrations and all. Instead of using this field, Oracle recommends to use this field for any integrations or report definitions, custom report definitions. And name. Give our accounting, chart of account structure instance name and description. EBS, we see all these checkboxes: enable dynamic combination, allow dynamic insert, shorthand aliases. All these checkboxes we see at chart of account structure level in EBS, but in the Fusion, what happened? Okay. So in the Fusion, the options are available at instance level because instance is the one which will be using at the time of primary ledger. This is the one which will be using to create the transactions. So that is the reason that checkboxes also they move to instance only. These we don't find at chart of account structure creation. But in EBS you can see all these are chart of account structure only because that is only the one which we create and use. But here we have instance, so that is the reason they moved here. Now we want to create the chart of account structure instance against which chart of account structure. Select whatever the chart of account structure we created. Which chart of account structure we created? ERP3 accounting flex field. Select. So we need 3 segments. That is the reason we created chart of account structure with the 3 segments. The same 3 segments we have to select. Company, department, account. Here we have one checkbox called as required. Okay. So these three segments we have to select as required, so that these three segments would be available within this instance. This instance will be selecting at the time of primary ledger creation. The same we can use to record the transaction to select company, department, and account values. So how to set as the segment values, these segments as required for our instance? Select company, just click on edit, say required, and say OK. There are few points I'll explain, but first we'll select it, we'll enable it. Select department, click on edit, enable as required. That means we are selecting this segment into instance. Account, so these two are selected as required. Click on edit, say required, and OK. How many segments we have in our chart of accounts? All you have to select as required. If you ignore any one of the segment, that doesn't work. Remember this point. It's not like just required or not required. You should select as required, because we are creating instance. Whatever the segments we have in our chart of account structure, all you have to select into instance. And if you notice, if you go to any one of the segment, if you click on edit, so whatever the value set we assign to this segment, that is system is displaying. If you want to override, you can override. If you want to change, you can change. So that's how you can do at instance level. Okay. So this is how we have to create the instance. It's just a copy of chart of account structure only. Oracle made this definition as a mandatory. So we cannot use directly chart of account structure, only we can use this instance only. Any questions here to understand this chart of account instance definition, please?
Required, you mean include, right? Here in the
yeah, require means include. You should not exclude anything. All you have to select. Okay. So try to understand these basic points. To understand these more detailed level, we have to discuss a lot. That is not required. That is the reason I am not getting into those areas also. So when you're working on SCM, just we are targeting to understand how to create the chart of accounts also, and that base we'll have a discussion and we'll do in the system. Okay, this information would be enough for us, because we are not going to work as a finance consultant to understand in and out. Even we understand, we never get an opportunity of designing the chart of accounts. At least for our practice purpose, to have a information, we are going through these sessions. Okay, which won't take much time. So that is the reason. Okay, fine. So we created chart of account structure instance. Just say save and close. Done. Okay, we created chart of account structure instance. Just click on done. So by using this tab, you created chart of account structure. By using this tab, you created chart of account structure instance. Now here you see this accounting flex field status edited. To use whatever the chart of account structure and instances we created, we have to make sure that the status as a deployed. Deployed is equal to compiled. So in case of EBS, normally we select our chart of account structure and we'll deploy. But in the Fusion, we cannot do this deployment for our specific chart of account structure or instances. This has to be done at accounting flex field level only. That means we have to deploy all the chart of account structures and instances which are already created and available within this accounting flex field. Okay, that is the point. If you have some issue with other chart of account structure, the deployment won't happen. It will give the message which instance or which chart of account structure has an issue, that if you have to correct, after correcting only the deployment will be completed. We'll see that process. Okay, simple. We created chart of account structure and instances. Okay, now we have to deploy it. You see the status edited. It should not be edited, it has to be deployed. So to deploy, simply you can click on deploy flex field. Okay, it takes some time to complete this process. Let's wait. Not yet completed. Once it's completed, it will be activated. So if any issues with any chart of accounts within this accounting flex field, that it will display the issues here. Let's expand. So 0 errors and 0 warnings. So when you are practicing, you create the chart of accounts as a complete definition. If somebody create chart of accounts where they created one segment and they didn't assign the segment labels, after that, if you are creating the chart of accounts as a everything is a with the proper information, when you submit for a deployment, so that incomplete chart of account will cause for this deployment error. It will show the warning saying that here it will give the message also in so and so chart of account we have only one segment, so minimum 2 segments should be there, so and so segment is missing, or else somebody created 2 segments but the segment labels balancing and natural accounts are not assigned, and it will show the message. Until unless you go and correct those, you cannot deploy. Okay, anytime if you see any warning here, what you have to do, you have to go to those chart of accounts structures and you have to do the correction. That is the reason when you are practicing, don't create any chart of accounts as incomplete definition. Create as this how we discussed, which is a complete information. So there won't be any issues for you or others who are practicing on the instance. Okay, so say okay. Now you see the status here, deployed. This is what we required. Done.
So there is one question, like if there is any modification is required chart of accounts, we need to deploy it again, and it is possible to deploy it again after the correction.
Voice is very low. Who is speaking? I'm not sure. I could see 2 guys' names. No issues. I'll answer. Okay. So any modification. The first point is we should not do any modification. Okay. Chart of accounts is one-time definition. You have to plan and you have to design and you have to create the chart of accounts. You should not do modification. Here modification means adding some new segments. All these activities you should not do. So when you talk about segment values, yes, anytime you can add the segment values in the ongoing process. Always we may need some new companies, new departments, we may come up with new accounts. These and all you can add. Apart from that, whatever however you created, within that you should not change anything, not at all recommended. So Oracle will allow you, the application will allow you to add one more segment, but we should not do that. Will create many data inconsistency issues. We should not do any modifications to chart of accounts, even system allows you. That is a point. Any questions, please?
If we need to create a new chart of account and then we need new chart of account instance, and then we need to deploy accounting flex field again. If we need to add a new chart of account or new
same process you have to follow. Same process you have to follow. When you create the new chart of accounts, if you are going to do the implementation for other country, normally you may create new chart of accounts. Okay, this is a one-time task. At the time of implementation, we do it. So you implemented for India, you are going to implement for US. So India chart of accounts you don't want to use for US. If you want to have a global chart of account which can be used for multiple countries, okay. Or else country-specific chart of accounts you want to maintain, yes, will be creating when you do the new implementation for other country. Okay, otherwise not required. If you want to create one more chart of account for other country, the same process, whatever you followed, same process will be creating. That would be separate chart of accounts. That's it. Once you start using any chart of account, you cannot replace. The same you have to continue. That will be selecting into primary ledger. Whatever the chart of account you select into primary ledger, that you cannot change. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, please? Yeah. Any other questions, please? Okay. This is a finance consultant task. Okay. But no issues. Even if you have any questions to understand more on this, you can raise the point. But from my side, I am not just giving more information on this since not required for us. Okay. But the basic level, what level of information is enough for us. So as a same consultant, that level I'm just trying to share with you. So, but if you want to understand any further information on this to get to know, just please raise your question. We can talk on this. Okay, done. So we deployed. We have to create the segment values, and when you are creating the segment values, we have to assign the value attributes to segment values. So that we'll do in the tomorrow session. It's already 9:40. Maybe it would be a bit late if you continue now for a few guys. So we can wind up for today. We'll done for today. One second. We're done for today. You can drop from the meeting. If you have any questions, you can stay back and we can discuss. Okay, we're done for today. From my side, there is no other points to be discussed. So we're done for today. You can drop from the meeting if you don't have any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
You deploy every time you change the instance, or you change the values? You add values, you deploy.
No, when you create the values, you don't need to deploy. The first time when you create the chart of accounts, we have to deploy. And in the general ledger application, we have some features like security rules, cross-validation rules. When you create those first time, we have to deploy it. Otherwise, normally we don't need to go on to deploy all the time. When you create, you have to deploy. That's enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The changes will be reflected. That's all. Our system will perform the validation. That's it. All the time you don't need to do. If you are going to create the values for company, department, account, deployment is not required. Automatically those will get updated. So directly we are not doing in the structure level. That separate task will be doing. Any other questions?
Lakshman, hi, this is Saurabh.
Yes,
it is related to today's session. Actually, I just missed yesterday's session due to some confusion between your team and me. Yesterday, have you done something in the application itself, or you just explained the
mostly we discussed theoretically in the yesterday session. What we did is, one second, I'll take you through that. So we discussed about fusion arc structure. It's completely just discussion.
Theoretical.
And discussed about the enterprise structure in the fusion by comparing with a multi-org. And one simple topic, simple concept, geographies. Just nothing to do with this. You have to go to geographies and you have to submit import Nokia data. Just one click process. That you can go through the video. You can see. We didn't do anything much in instance. Maybe 5 minutes to spend to see what we did in instance. That's all.
Then it is okay, because till your last session, means before yesterday, I have done all those calculations in the instance, but actually I missed yesterday, so I thought that I missed a lot.
then you are in the sync only. No doubt. Know where it is.
And will you be sharing today's and yesterday's video by today itself?
Yesterday's session I placed in the Google Drive yesterday itself.
But you have not
Oh, is
shared
it?
email IDs, right?
Sorry?
You have not shared 2 email IDs, given email ID.
Oh yeah. The same point I mentioned. I think you are not
Yes,
in that session of the day. What I do is I don't send any email. I share the Google Drive access, right? I'll be
Yes.
placing the video in the drive. Since you have access, you can go and open. You can see. So every session, I'm not going to share through email. I'm not going to email every session video. I'll be placing the drive. You have access. You can access that. You have drive access so that you can access that video. That's how it works. Okay, check the drive. You can find it, or else let me show you. Okay, this is the drive I shared with everyone. So this is yesterday's session which I placed in the drive.
Okay, 8th session. Got it. I'll just do it. Fine. Thank you.
Yeah. So today's session I'll be placing in the drive in a couple of hours because I have to convert. It takes time.
Yes.
I'll be placing
No.
this. Yeah. Any questions from anyone, please?
So Lakshman, I didn't get any email for this drive. I'm not sure if I missed any initial emails or anything because I talked to Saidale after after some sessions is already done, so maybe
Okay.
that's the reason.
Yeah. I'll just, you spoke to him, right? So you'll be sending the email. I'll be sharing. Yeah, I'll do that. Your good name?
Nashattar.
Gunashankar.
Nashattar. NACC. You can see in the
Yeah.
in the participant list, right?
Yes. I could see it. Yeah.
It's my first name. That's a nashattar@gmail.com. That's my email ID.
No, not required.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Fine. Yeah. So.
And Lakshman, is there any plan?
Any questions from anyone, please?
So Lakshman, is there any plan to they start this session a little bit early? Because it's late for me, so I was just checking.
No. I mean, I think you have that information, right? Team informed, and in the beginning of the sessions also, I was telling. So we'll be preponing. We will be preponing the sessions to 6 o'clock. That will do in the next week, next month.
Okay, next.
Maybe after 2 weeks. Okay, max 2 to 3 weeks, or max will switch. Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So any questions from anyone, please? If no questions, we can wind up.